Just Chase, Anthony Joseph, Prime Stay, Holiday Homes. Most awarded agent in Dubai, his name is Anthony. Portfolios he's scaling really high, that's why they can't compete. The first time that he came out to Dubai, he didn't have a thing. Now he's out here changing all these lives and it's a masterpiece.
We are back in a new episode with Dr. Anand to speak about all of the weekly updates. And with the first topic we want to start talking about is the dark sky policy that we have seen this article circulating in Abu Dhabi. Doctor, tell us more about this.
Okay, firstly, I'll have to mention that it is still very early, but I'll share what we have so far. The dark sky policy is coming out of the UAE's goals to be a sustainable country, and the environment protection is part of that. Dark sky policy is about creating dark skies. Cities today are brightly lit. There's just too much of neon, too much of brightness, artificial lights, lasers. So we call that light pollution. So what happens is, let's look at a human perspective, let's look at the birds and the animals and look at the ecosystem. For human beings also, you're constantly being bombarded by strong lights, even artificial lights, which is not good in the long run for us. The babies, a lot of people with all these flashing lights, it does affect them in terms of their thinking ability. The brain gets impacted with these blinding lights. That's one problem. The second problem is, look at the birds. The birds are confused. Yeah, they're completely confused. When do I sleep? I mean, first it was a bright sun and it was starting to go down. Now I have bright lights all around me. It's as good as daytime. So it is affecting the whole life pattern of the natural ecosystem and the birds, animals. There are nocturnal animals that need to come out. Nocturnalists, they come out only in the night. Where is the night for them anymore? So it has affected their patterns in life. And then there are the day kind of animals and birds that usually will retire for the night or go to sleep. And they can't do that anymore. So we are actually changing the environment for these kind of creatures. Thirdly, the earth itself needs to rest. There is a daytime heating up of the earth that happens in multiple ways. Direct sunlight, warmth in the air. The cooling phases happen during dark night. Dark night is not that everything goes black, but it's just natural lighting, the stars, the moon. And that lighting is more than enough for the cooling and for the ecosystems to recover so they can be prepared for the next day. We're taking away all of that possibility by filling our cities with so much of these artificial lights. So the dark sky policy is to try and reduce in unnecessary areas all these bright lights. Okay, so the dark sky policy is identifying areas in the city where we don't need to have so much of bright lights in the evenings and nights. So neighborhoods, communities, school areas, office buildings, these kind of places is where they will keep only the minimum requirement, softer street lightings and things like that, so that we can actually give our own environment a chance to recover. Every night it needs to recover, it needs to breathe again. Only for events, cultural highlights, etc., it will continue to have the lighting that they're going for. There too, they are going to be looking at changing the type of lighting that is going to get used. So in the long run, it is helpful for the environment, the ecosystem, for humans, birds, animals.
It's beautiful that they're taking care of this. And we've seen like 2 weeks ago when they were announcing that they're gonna be building more corals on the beach to help the sea life, thrive like it used to be.
1 billion corals coming.
So that's something really impressive, that we always see government just doing what's good for them, sometimes what's good for their people. But now we're seeing the UAE government doing this amazing stuff to the residents, to the animal life, and this speaks volume about it.
I'd actually like to add a point to that. You see, mankind has always progressed and developed at the cost of the others who share this earth.
Correct.
We don't care about forests, we don't care about the animals, we don't care about the fish in the sea. We progress, but it's the environment and the others that pay the price. The UAE today is one of those few countries that's actually trying to do the progression, but save the environment and take care of everybody else. We have only one planet that we share with other living species.
Absolutely, and hope the other governments and countries they get jealous of the UAE perseverance and just always looking forward to be the best country that provides the best quality of life for its residents and for its animals as well. So hopefully everyone follows this step. Doctor, I got some questions from different business owners. Different brokers, and they all had few questions for you. So I'm gonna start aligning it. It's coming from a CEO here that is asking like, how usually when it comes to recruitment, how do you spot or how do you pick candidates? How can you tell this guy have a bright future, and how can you tell this guy is not?
Okay. You can look at potential for the future. You cannot assure that you will have that, but I need to have certain indicators. One of the things I follow is called the 3-5-7 second rule. The 3-5-7 second is a total of a 15 second within which you make your first assessment of the person. So the first 3 seconds is the visual that you look at. Okay, what do I notice about the person in the first 3 seconds? And that is important because that's my first impact. If I look at them long enough for the next 10 minutes, I will notice many things, but I don't usually have that kind of time. So my first 3 seconds is, am I immediately impressed or not? The next 5 seconds is how they speak, the tonality in their voice. Is there a quiet confidence, reassuring? Because usually that's what happens. In the first 3 seconds, you see them, they come up to you, they introduce themselves. So I start to hear. So I'm looking at the social dynamics of the person, and I'm looking at the tonal dynamics. And if I like both of that, the next 7 seconds is judging how comfortable I'm immediately feeling in the 15 seconds that I want to actually have a conversation with this person. Particularly if the CEO is from a sales-oriented company, this becomes very important because we know that in the first few seconds, I need to form at least a positive impression in the mind of the client, because he's going to have that unconsciously coloring or supporting anything I do after that. That is the first thing in terms of spotting. Before that also, actually, my pre-qualification on the CVs, the criteria I have. I think one of the big problems is not with spotting the candidate, it's with the company itself. When you put out a social media post and you're looking for a position, how you word it is very, very important. If you want to attract a particular type of talent or person, then you word it for that kind of person. If you look at the ad, for example, just take any sales ad that goes out for a sales position, most of them look the same. So when you do not even take time to think about what you are actually saying in there, the people will not think about whether this applies to them or not. You will get the crowd walking in through the door because it was not even very clear what you wanted. And then when you see someone walking in and you're disappointed, I don't think it's their fault. You didn't even know what you wanted in the first place. You put a very sweeping generic ad and then I have people showing up. So that's one problem. Now, when it comes to the candidate, when I get the CVs, the pre-qualifying of CVs is very, very important. Very, very important. You look for longevity, which is how long a person has been in the field for sure. You want to look for a scale up in their career, the progression. I need to see, are they growing or are they going backwards? You need to see, does the CV inform or does it inspire? Because I want CVs that inspire, that I can feel connected to. Information is not going to excite me. So if your ad has been well targeted and has got all the relevant skills you're looking for, now is their CV generic or have they made it specific to the position? You'll get these CVs looking for a job in a multinational organization.
Or
where
the hobbies, the karaoke and the dancing.
So that doesn't make sense. Now, when it comes to after you've done the 3, 5, 7 second, now the very, very important thing in recruiting and spotting talent. We hire people for technical compatibilities, but we fire them for behavioral incompatibilities. So what do I mean by this?
It's a beautiful point. Very well said.
You are hiring a sales guy, right? What should you look for in the interview? Selling ability.
The way he speaks, the way he takes information, the way he listens, because salespeople, if they don't listen, that's where they fall.
Okay, absolutely. But again, I want to test his selling ability. This is if it's a person with experience. Remember, we are creatures of unconscious pattern. Now that means when I go as a candidate for an interview, I'm carrying with me a pattern of behavior. I'm not going to leave the pattern outside the door when I join your company. So now I hire these bunch of guys, I put them at a table, I give them phones, and they're supposed to make calls or they're supposed to take clients, go and do viewings, but I have no idea how they actually do a viewing. So the way to do it is you interview for the behavior and the skill, not for the history. So here's an example. If there is a requirement to pick up the phone and speak to people to generate business, my first interview is a phone interview. Don't waste the candidate's time or your time by bringing them into the office. They may have a great personality, they may look good and be well presented, but if the entry point into doing business with the client is on the phone, I need to know if this person has the ability to engage and connect and build confidence on the phone. You cannot do that in a face-to-face interview. So your first interview should be a pre-qualification phone interview, because now I can listen to the tonality, to the clarity of what they're saying. Are they interrupting or listening? Do they paraphrase? Do I get the sense of confidence that this is the kind of person I would want to talk and do business with? If they can tick those boxes, then you bring them in. So what I'm doing now, I'm pre-qualifying the typical behavior that I need to see them demonstrate. Now, if they come in for the interview, I test it further. So, Anthony, let's say you made a call to this client. His name is Anand. And Anand said, listen, I'm busy right now. What would you say next? There is no bullshitting at this point. Either he knows what he's saying or he doesn't. So I know, because when I put him onto the floor, and if I'm not investing heavily in training, what is he going to do when he picks up the phone? He's going to use his unconscious pattern, which he has developed through a crash, burn, and learn in the past. So I have not evaluated the behaviors that I want to see on my floor. And then I put these people there, I give them targets and KPIs, and I'm confused why they're not getting the conversions, because I've never checked how he behaves on the phone. If it's a client who's come to meet with me, I ask him, okay, so take me through your rapport building process. I want you to build rapport with me right now. You're done. You know whether the person has the ability, does he have any structure? If I need to qualify, I would simply say, okay, so Anthony, you've got my details. I'm the CEO of a software company. Qualify me. That's what they do on a daily basis, right? Now I know what this guy is going to be doing with every lead I give him. And that's the behavior. So I know whether this person can convert for me or cannot.
Let's stop right here and say this person, he asked the wrong questions when it comes to qualifying. And when it comes to, for him being sharp and using, like these answers, he wasn't as to the point.
Okay.
But you could have seen that they look good and they smelled good. And there is a potential of them becoming a new star, but they need to have the proper molding.
Correct.
Would you give them the chance?
Yeah, yes, of course. Because I don't expect every person to tick every box. But what I'm saying is, when I ask to qualify, I want to see, do they stick to asking questions?
If they start with the first question, what's your budget? You tell them, get out of the office.
Maybe even no, because see, that's training.
Yeah.
We can tell them not to ask that kind of question. There's a structure, a sequence that you need to follow. But what I need to see is, does this person even understand that in the qualifying stage, I just need to be asking questions, giving no answers, controlling the conversation and making the client talk. Can I see them doing this? Because most salespeople, once I have said something, well, what kind of a home would you be looking for? For example, well, I'm interested in a 4-bedroom villa. Okay, well, how much are you looking investing? Something like around 4 million. They'll say, I have an amazing, they'll go off straight away into that. That is not qualifying. So I know that this is the behavior they're going to be showing on the sales floor or when they meet clients. So always interview for skill and behavior, because I can still take the person. He doesn't have to tick all boxes. If he ticks quite a few, at least I know the monster I'm bringing in and I know what I have to train on. Another example would be, so Anthony, let's say you presented the solution to me and then I told you, I think it's very expensive. How would you deal with that? He cannot bullshit you here. I know immediately what is his objection handling approach.
It also can be avoided. Like, Sorry, I just want to give my method. So when I'm speaking to someone and he says, I want a villa, I don't say how much you're looking to invest. So I tell him the most common and well-known communities
It
of
comes in
villas
this range.
are, let's say Dubai Hills Estate facing Mudun, Damak Hills, and all the way up to reach Nashama. And tell him that the prices vary between 3 million all the way up to 25 million. Where do you see yourself fitting in? So once you tell me this, it will help me narrow down the option to fit your criteria. I don't want to give you way more than your budget. I don't want to give you way less than your budget. And people respect that. And I had so many people when they were asking for townhouses on the beach. Back then, what did we have? Sur la Mer and few other projects. So I had a guy coming with 1.5 million dirham budget to have a townhouse on the beach. I told him it's unrealistic. So yeah, there's lots of ways to be asking.
The point
this.
for us here in this conversation is not what we would say.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
I'm just giving an example,
which
because
they can
lots
use.
of people, they can use it.
They can
It's
use
way
it, yeah.
better than saying what is your budget, because it's kind of a disgusting way of...
Budget is definitely a wrong word.
Yeah.
Some of them don't ask it. They would say, like, for that kind of a home, how much are you looking at investing? All I'm saying is, I need to see, is he asking questions or is he giving answers? Because they tend to jump into answer mode. That is not a good qualifying practice, because you distract the client from what he needs to be thinking about when he's giving you the information. So if that CEO were to focus on skill-based interviewing, behavior-based interviewing, I think they will be more confident about what is coming in, because when I'm sitting in my cabin or I'm outside, I know what my boys and girls are doing when they're on the phone or when they're out there. And then you sharpen that behavior through specific training. But try to bring the behavior in, because behavior takes time to develop. It's an unconscious pattern, and our comfort is the unconscious pattern.
Is everyone coachable?
100%.
Everyone.
Every single person is coachable. The problem is we use one type of approach to coach people. That would not work. Okay. We need to find out the motivators and the drivers for that person. Everybody has something that drives them. Even the most demotivated person, even the person who's got a negative attitude, people were not born with these attitudes. Things have happened to them in life that have made them become this way. So if we can find the right kind of motivators and sit with people, everybody is coachable. But the approach has to change. You cannot be using the same kind of approach. Most of us, firstly, what is your intent as a coach? Okay. The other person must be able to see that you really want to help me. They have to see it. Once people understand that you really want to help them, they slowly start to open up. Yes, some of them would take a little longer, but it can be done. I work with an agency. They had a team, an off-plan team, totally demotivated. 90% of them were ready to resign. And we brought in a director, and we said, this is your challenge. We even introduced him to them. We said, this is the team we're giving you. 90% of them are ready to leave. In 3 months, he turned that team into the top performing team for that company in just 3 months. 90% of the team ready to walk out the door became the top performing team because of how he believed in them, how he was there for them individually, one-on-one. He found their motivators and he started to work with that. So it can be done. But yes, I would add and simply say you need to be a good coach of people when you have to work with these kind of people.
I want to give you a scenario which I've been seeing all of my life. And I always tell these people that you are your own enemy. It's your arrogance that's killing you. It's nothing else. When I joined real estate, it was end of 2014. And back then we had let's say 7-8 people that were doing amazing in that market. And everyone started scaling their business, becoming better people. But these guys kind of got stuck where they were. They never wanted to attend any webinars or any conferences or nothing. And whenever a company was saying, I arranged a training for you, they were like, screw that. I make 150 to 100,000 a month. I don't need that training. And we reached the year by 2017 or 18 where these guys couldn't close a deal anymore, while the others who were just beginners were smashing it. And these guys are still in the market until date, blaming the market, even though in 2014 and 15 they were smashing it. These kind of people, how can you coach them if they don't acknowledge that there's something wrong with them?
There's the trick. Okay. Getting people to acknowledge. There are great ways to do that. For example, there are some techniques in a book called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, where he actually works with people who are resisting and he gets them to acknowledge. And once that acknowledgement comes, then you can start to work with them. In fact, he explains in one of the chapters where he did it with his own son. And he was not getting anywhere with his son, and he used a technique called "that's right." Yeah. So I would actually encourage
What
people
was the
to
example about the car, the Ford he was buying for his son?
yeah. So and it's the "that's right." And because what happened is, you see, getting acknowledgement can be done two ways. Sometimes if you ask the right questions and if your answers make sense, it's hard for people to reject the logic in it. So they might end up saying things like, "You're right, what you're saying makes sense." That doesn't change a person because they're not taking ownership of it. What they're saying is, what you are saying, that makes sense. So you have to get the response, "Well, that's right," which is when they take the ownership of it. So there are a few techniques. The other techniques are NLP techniques, neuro-linguistic programming, because you see the resistance is built here through unconscious pattern, like you said, over the last few years. So when the unconscious pattern is the resistance, you speak to the unconscious mind, the subconscious mind. You work your magic there. You do not try and use logic from the critical mind when you talk to these people because they will resist it. Their critical mind is awake at the same time. So it'll be one critical mind with another critical mind. It is going to end up in a clash. So you have to bypass the critical filters. Yeah. So you speak into the subconscious mind. That's why the best coaches, and if you research this, you'll find the best coaches are all NLP practitioners. They become master coaches because they've understood that when you work with people, all of us are creatures of pattern. So if I have to change something in a person, I have to go beyond the pattern or behind the pattern so I can start to work with them in the subconscious mind.
And put them in the reality where it says you're no longer what you thought you are. Actually, in real estate, unfortunately, you are as good as your last deal. Yeah. Even though you have done millions and whatever you have sold, this is what you can do. Okay, doctor, what should be the average income of a broker in these crazy markets?
Okay. The average income of a broker, I think the first thing you'll have to do is you'll have to separate the brokers into tiers. It's what I do with most of the companies I work
ABC.
with. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, and Tier 4. I usually have...
Oh, we have 4.
Yeah.
You're very generous.
Yeah, no, I have Tier 4. I'll tell you why, okay? Tier 1 are your aces, your super top performers, okay? Typically, your teams are built in an 80-20. So we have this bell curve that we create where you'll have the top 10%. These top 10% are absolute rock stars. They know why they wake up in the morning. They're on fire. They're hitting the big numbers, big numbers, 8 million, 10 million a year. They're easily doing it. We don't need to touch these guys for now, okay? Just leave them because these guys are doing really, really well. It's the other 90% that I need to focus on. So how is it broken up? It's broken as a 10, 80, and 10. That last 10%, you really want them to go. These are the guys who want your building to burn. The remaining 80%, I again break it into a 40 and a 40. So there's 40 leaning towards the good side. There's 40 leaning on the average towards the downside. This is the group that I need to work with, right? So when I look at the numbers...
The culture.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the group that I look at. So my tier 1 guys are people who are hitting maybe $500,000 a month. Easy $500,000. That's the tier 1 guys. Recently, I interviewed 2 people and they said, we want take home $500,000. That's 800 to 1 million commission is what they have to earn gross. It's because they want to take home that. Those are your tier 1 kind of people. So if you wanted to hit a commission of 1 million, even if it's an off plan at a 5%, you're talking 20 million sale. So these are people who should be looking at a sale of around 20 million, which in a market like today, with a demand for ultra luxury, is possible. But that's a small niche, few people do that. The next bulk that we're talking of, these are people who are hitting anything between 200 or 150 to 200K. Because they're good, they're on that side. Because today, truthfully, to do 200,000, you just have to sell 4 million. If you look at the average transactions registered, even yesterday, the average value of every registered transaction yesterday was 2.9. So in the market where an average unit is 2.9, obviously there are some below and some above. So when I have an average of 2.9, to hit 4 million is not a big thing.
was
One
never a big thing, even in down the market.
Yeah, but generally you see, that's why in your tier 3 and tier 4, for them it is big. Okay, because they are focused on. So my second tier category would be people I think who should be earning between 200, anything between 175 to 250. They could come in there. Your tier 3 are the people who have the potential to hit 100K.
Okay.
2 million. A 2 million deal. With the right coaching, with the right training, with the right management support, these guys I think should be looking at 100. Now the tier 4 is interesting. It's got two types of people in there. You've got the deadwood, whom you're not interested in and who needs to leave the company, but you also have new aspiring people. They just don't have footfall in the market yet. They don't have the networks. They haven't yet understood the market. So they're just starting. So these guys in their first few months, I do not expect that they will hit big numbers, but they have potential. They are my tier 2 guys. They're just sitting in tier 4 because they just came in. So a tier 4 can have two types of people, both not closing good numbers. One, I need to get rid of. The other one, I need to coach and build to the next level. Those guys are, I would say, it should be between 30 to 80,000.
I specifically prepared this question because few brokers, they feel like if I haven't sold in 1 or 2 months, I'm a pure loser. Elaborate on this, doctor. So why I'm asking you, what's the average? Like, do you need to make 2 deals a month to be considered as good, regardless of the value? Do you need to make 5, 10, 20? And in case you had a bad month, this will not wipe out the history. So let's say Jan, Feb were amazing, March was terrible. In April, if you make as much as you make in these 2 months, you are back on track. So tell us approximately, when do you feel like, yeah, this is not for me? Either I need coaching or I need to change industry. Is it like not closing for 3 months, for 6 months, or not having meetings? What is the line that says, look for something else?
Okay, I would say if you're not doing something for 6 months is when you have to really start to question whether you should be in this industry, because you're not doing your clients a favor. Every lead you're talking to, you're obviously not giving them enough confidence for them to come and buy. So their time is also being wasted. They could even be losing opportunities in the market. You're doing yourself no favor. You're on no salary. There's nothing coming into the bank, but there are bills to be paid. Psychologically, you're getting damaged more and more. But you need to give yourself 6 months, because some people do go through a dry patch. Maybe it's a new broker who's come in, or they might have been great in sales, in luxury cars, but they're struggling in real estate. They need a good 3 months at least before they can really
Happens
start
to all.
Yeah. Before 3 months, I don't think you should start giving up on yourself. But what you need to do is, even in those 3 months, you got to be evaluating the quality of your activities and the volume of your activities. As long as you are doing some of those, it's a matter of time it is going to start happening. Once that happens, you will keep closing. Now, in terms of the deal value, I agree with you. You don't worry too much about the deal value. Get into the practice of closing.
Getting it rolling.
Yes. Once you start closing deals, the big ones will come. Small ones will still be there, but they'll keep coming. So don't wait for that one big one. The advice I give people is, when you are learning, particularly if it's new brokers, they're the ones after 2 months, 3 months, they thought, let's give it a shot. Let me try. Now I didn't close. I think I should leave. The reason for that is they were probably going for that one big thing, or they were waiting for that perfect client to come up. Never do that. When you are learning something new, and this is when you're learning any skill, including driving, okay, anything. When you're learning a skill, I tell people, focus on quantity, not quality. And most people, give me a funny look on that. Remember, you got unconscious pattern and behaviors that are with you, right? If I'm focusing on quality when I've trained, I'm going to do a new thing. It's a new skill. But I don't have the confidence yet, and I don't have unconscious pattern, and my previous patterns are going to resist. So what will happen? I'll try something new. It will not work. It will not get me the result. I'll stop because I'm focusing on quality. So when I don't get the result, no, let me just do what I was doing before. Focus on quantity. Just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. Automatically quality will go up. But if you focus on quality, quantity will stop. Just focus it. Look at driving. For us, the car was a monster when we sat in it the first time. We were definitely doing things wrong. But we kept doing it. And today we get into the car, hit the button, and we're gone. Because we did the quantity, the quality came up.
Practice it until you cannot get it wrong.
That's it. So
That's
just keep doing it. Yeah.
With inflation coming up, is there any risk on people defaulting on their installment and then affecting the developer's cash flow?
I actually don't think that's a major issue. Why? If you look at the rate of inflation, and this is from Statista.com, if you look at the UAE inflation number, Statista.com last year was 1.65. This year is 2.1. From 25 to 29, the projection is 2% a year. So I don't believe a 2% a year, which is, it's not a big amount.
We are living here amazing. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
talking about here. I'm asking like for people living in Europe, people living in places where inflation is between 8 to 15%.
Yeah. For both.
If these guys, since most of the buyers buying off plan, they are following a payment plan, let's say 50, 60 till completion and the remaining on handover, with the inflation getting way higher, people might default on their installment. I hope no one default. I hope even if someone's going through financial difficulty, someone will come and buy their property on the original price, even though it's not going to happen. So, but if that scenario occurred and people stop paying their installment, would this affect the liquidity of the developer?
Yes.
That will force the developer to delay the handover of the project?
Okay. This can happen in two ways. One of the reasons why the premium developers go with strong payment plans is to pre-qualify the liquidity of your buyers. People who can put large amounts, 20% down payment, 10% every 6 months, are showing you they have the ability to make these kind of payments. When once you start going with a 5% down payment you pay and that sort of thing, and just pay 1% every month, put 70% after that, what happens? Anyone and everybody starts thinking of getting into the investment. So that's where people who are salaried employees who may not have enough, who are thinking I can put that 4,000, 5,000 every month, they start thinking and start coming. They are the people who have the highest risk of losing jobs and being affected by the inflation. So when developers come up with properties that have those kind of plans, they run the higher risk of losing the liquidity and therefore delaying.
Let's speak about this scenario. What happens if someone loses their job and they cannot pay their installment?
Okay. There's three ways you can deal with this. The first thing I think is not to avoid the payments just like that. Get in touch with the developer straight away. See, developers will prefer you at least come and start talking to us. Tell us so we have a little bit of time where we can work out some interim solution for you maybe for the next 2 to 3 months. But come and talk to us. It's not that you ignore the payment, you ignore the phone calls, and eventually when you get warning letters or threat notices, then you come and talk. You've already lost the intent of the developer also to work with you. So it is a reality. It can happen. Just come and meet. You're not the first person who has been in a situation like that with the developer. They probably already have an interim plan, an adjustment in place where they can work with you. But show them that you are there and you're looking for a solution. That's the intent. I think you'll get a better response from the developer. That's the first thing. Go up to them, see what is the interim that can be done. The second is if you really don't have any option, then you are going to have to find a buyer and you go in the market. However, particularly this applies to off-plan. If you've missed certain payments and now you're deciding to sell, there are penalties that have been levied on you. You cannot just find a buyer out there because the developer will not give you an NOC till you clear your pending liability and then you can recover it from the next buyer. So that is the reason why I'm saying that you should approach the developer straight away so he can work out a solution. If not, you already know, let me start finding a person now so I don't incur penalties and multiple non-payments because it's going to become even harder for me to find the buyer in that case because I don't get an NOC. The third worst case scenario is if you do not have anything and the unit is going to be defaulted, then there is a system here. The system is that the developer cannot take it away from you just like that. They have to notify DLD, RERA. RERA will send an official notice to that buyer giving him 30 days from the date of that notice. Within that 30 days, he has to be able to make at least a part payment and the developer can continue them. If not, he's going to lose the unit. So now what happens when you lose that unit? Because you may have paid some amounts. How it operates is if the construction in the project is 80% completed, then the developer has got two options here. So 80% is done. Either he can retain whatever you have paid till that point in time, which would be probably around that much since it's construction linked. They can retain it. They can put the units for auction. And from the money that they get from the auction, they can recover their balance and then return to you the remaining amount. And you will actually pay the fee for the auction also. So this is one choice a developer has got. Hold the monies that has been received, put the unit into auction, recover what else you need, and then you can give the balance money. The second option they have in this case, if it is 80% completed, is that they can retain 40% of what was paid up based on the purchase value, the amount on the SPA, and they refund the balance and they void the contract, which is actually good for the developer because I retain the 40%, the unit is with me and I can sell it again. So if it's 80% and above, these two options. If the construction is 60% and above, but below 80, then they have the option of only retaining 40 and voiding the contract. They can't take it to auction.
And if the property is ready, they can keep 60.
They can keep 60.
They always go for these options. And for all of the buyers, I've seen lots of comments coming on my page where they say, if you don't pay for your property, you go to jail. This is absolute nonsense. End of the day, you haven't done a crime, you haven't stolen, you haven't killed. It was just like your situation has changed. And while proving it, it's all good. There has never been a scenario where someone goes to jail unless if they were scamming a developer or doing something against the law. Yeah. So it was very important for me to emphasize on
yes,
this
and
point.
I'll tell you another point you can add to that which will help them. See, what would have probably happened is because there may have been a back and forths, not pleasant conversations, there's sometimes a possibility that a legal notice comes to you or the CRM team tells you, we will take legal action. So people's minds, legal action, they jump to jail.
Yeah.
So just that is another thing that that makes people feel that way.
Also speaking about the charges, I want to, because I've been asked this a lot, for everyone, before you purchase a property, make sure to read your SPA. The developer will mention everything in the SPA and everyone will mention the amount, the percentage that they will be charging from you on a monthly basis in case of you stopped your installments. So for example, someone told me, can a developer charge more than 1.5%? I know a developer that charges 5%. It's not ethic, but end of the day, he gave you this and you have signed on it. So for everyone, either you would be having a very special consultant that is specialized in this, that can read the SPA and explain it to you, or just use a lawyer. Just don't sign blindly and then get surprised after 3-4 years, because once you have signed, means that you're gonna be following everything which is mentioned on this one. Also, for example, by law, we know that a developer is allowed to delay 1 year without paying any compensations.
Correct.
But some developers, they tell you, from the time that we will give you the handover notice, you are eligible to sue us or to ask for a claim that has been delayed. I am one of these guys that I've been stuck with a property for the past 5 years and I cannot take 1 dirham or any sort of compensation. And even though I am a broker, I've been doing all of this, I didn't read the SPA because I trusted the brand, and apparently the brand has its own bombs inside of the SPA. Doctor, lots of landlords are faking the vacation notice. We know that in order for you to vacate someone, either you want to use the property yourself or you want to sell it. Lots of landlords are sending out these notices to the tenant from the notary saying, I want to sell my property. Once they leave, they will be surprised that the landlord has rented it again. So usually I know that the tenants are allowed to go for the land department, show the proof, and then the DLD will block this unit and give compensation to the tenant. But tell us usually, what does the law tell? Like, what can a tenant do with a landlord and how this trend can be stopped?
Okay. I don't see this trend stopping because there will always be people who will try something like this, particularly when you're seeing rents going up the way it is now. I think the landlords who do this are banking on one thing, that people don't want to go through all that inconvenience of going to land department, going through the process, because these things take time and all of that. They don't want to go through that. For most people, it is easier to just, give up and say, okay, let me just find something else and move on. So these kind of landlords are actually banking on that. Is it illegal what they're doing? It's not illegal.
It's not ethical.
Yeah, but it's not ethical. And if this is raised, a brave tenant or a firm tenant just takes it up with RERA, and I think it will work in their favor. But that's it. But it's not going to stop people doing this. They'll always, because they can always say, I change my mind later. So it's a very vague thing that stays in the air. So if it goes as a complaint, DLD and RERA will ensure that the tenant is protected in this case, because if the client has been moved out and then you are continuing to rent, there will be an issue that you'll have.
Doctor, let's finish this beautiful episode giving the weekly numbers that's happening this week.
Okay. I'll give the last 10 days of this.
Sure.
This one. The last 10 days, we've had a total of 6,750 transactions. It was 19.56 billion were the registered transactions. So the average value per unit that was registered in the first 10 days of May was 2.9 million.
$800,000.
Yeah. So if you take it into the cash to mortgage ratios, which is very important to know that the market is strong, because cash will be strong when the market's in demand. So in the volume of transactions, we had 81% cash, 19% was mortgage. So very strong place. The value of the transactions, 78% was the cash transaction value and 22% was mortgage. Obviously, because ready homes are going to be slightly higher in price. Therefore, the value of the transaction is higher there. And with the golden visa magic from last couple of years, people are going for 2 million and above units. The average registered unit for cash was 2.65 and the average unit registered for mortgage was 3.89. Those were the numbers for this past week.
Doctor, thank you for an amazing episode. Guys, I'm sure you're going to enjoy this episode and see you in the next one.
Anthony Joseph, Prime Stay, Holiday Homes. Most awarded agent in Dubai, his name is Anthony. Portfolios he's scaling really high, that's why they can't compete. The first time that he came out to Dubai, he didn't have a thing. Now he's out here changing all these lives and it's a masterpiece.